If all you want is a little runaround car that's pretty easy to live with and very economical, the MG ZS EV is a decent option, especially if you live in the city and don't do too much long distance driving. The exterior design is clean and tidy, with good overall proportions that accommodate both passenger space and nimble city driving and parking. This is the top spec Essence long range variant. But even still, priced from $46,990, it's not stupidly expensive like some EVs. It's not a driver's car by any means, but again, if you don't really care about that sort of stuff, you just want something that's cheap and cheap to run, provided you have solar at home and you're able to charge during the day, this offers good on-paper specs. The 72.6 kilowatt-hour battery provides a range of 440 kilometers on the WLTP cycle, or an impressive 505 kilometers on the NEDC cycle. Unfortunately, there is no twin motor all-wheel drive option. This is front-wheel drive only. Inside, it's much like the exterior, clean and not too loud, and it certainly doesn't make a big deal about being an electric vehicle. In fact, it's pretty much exactly the same as the petrol ZS in here. You've got a 10.1-inch touchscreen on the dash with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, as well as a 7-inch digital gauge cluster. Most of the trimmings and fit and finish is respectable for this price range. There's also plenty of charging ports, a wireless charger, and an array of storage options. Passenger space is good for this class too, with a tall ceiling providing good head clearance getting in and once you're in, even in the back. A big sunroof, as standard, helps to open up the perception of spaciousness, and obviously brightens up the environment. Boot space is pretty good as well, rated at 359 litres. This is expandable to just under 1200 litres. Look, it's not going to make a great family car, but it's enough to support the daily errands, perhaps as a second car. For this segment, it's very respectable. As for the motor under the bonnet, power output is detuned to 115 kilowatts in the long-range model to help with range. But if you want more, the regular Essence offers 130 kilowatts. Even so, they share 280 newton meters of torque, which is the stuff that you'll need most zipping around in the city. Performance is actually better than you might expect. Now out on the road we've got a few different driving modes. It's in normal at the moment, which has got good response from the accelerator. Yeah, it picks up nicely. Then you can put it into eco mode and it just becomes a bit more relaxed. So you have to push your foot further on the pedal to achieve the same sort of acceleration. And then when you put it into sport mode, yeah, it really becomes quite sensitive. It handles all right. The suspension seems to be nice and taut, but not too stiff. Look, it is a bit sloppy if you really start to push it, but I don't think anyone in this market segment is expecting, you know, performance sporty sort of results there. So I think it's acceptable for this type of vehicle and given its price. You've also got different settings for the brake regen down there. I'm not sure if you can see it. There's a little circular symbol and it's got 3 different stages. So I've got it on the max at the moment. If I lift off the accelerator or the throttle, you can even hear it sort of winding down, providing that regen. At that level, it's not quite one pedal driving, but it's pretty good. I think it's a good balance because you can drive in traffic and things and you just back off the accelerator and it will slow down nicely without having to use the brakes for most of the time. It's just when you're slowing down to a dead stop, or if you want to slow down a bit quicker, then you've got to apply the brakes. Along this bumpy section here, yeah, it's not too bad. Look, as I said, it's a bit soft. It's sort of bouncing a little bit around, but really, I'd probably rather this type of setup in a vehicle like this over a sort of really sporty, firm setup, because you're not going to be driving this, in a spirited manner as much as a sportier hatch or something like that. So if you're buying this, you probably live in the city, and in the city this is fine. It can absorb those dodgy roads that we have in cities in Australia, or even country roads like this, just fine. Just some of those bumps, it doesn't settle quickly. You hit the bump and it will sort of just stay, well, lack of a better word, floating for a moment before it hunkers back down again. So just over there, it's just, yeah, bouncing a little bit. But again, it's soft and it's comfortable. So I think that's what MG is focusing on there. In terms of the range when you're driving, we know that it's 440 WLTP, but in the real world, I've topped this up to a maximum of about 430, which is not bad. A lot of electric vehicles don't actually get that close to their maximum range when you charge the battery to 100%, and that's in eco mode, aircon off, and all that sort of thing. But it does actually hold its range pretty good. It seems quite efficient at holding its range. As in, I've been driving for more than 440 kilometers. Sorry, I've been driving for around 440 kilometers with a full battery, whereas a lot of electric vehicles, in my experience, it might say 300 on the dashboard. You do about 200 and the thing's almost gone. And then you've got to top up again. Obviously, it depends on how you drive, but just in general, I mean, I'm driving the same way in this, and it seems to be staying fairly accurate to the recommendation on the dash. I think one of the most surprising things about the MG ZS EV is the build quality in here. Even along these shoddy roads, it's all hanging together really well. There's not many squeaks or rattles around. It feels very together. It's not tinny or echoey in here either, which you do get in some of the petrol rivals, to be frank. This is quite nice and acoustic, and it doesn't feel too hollow. So back down the hill, I'll put it into eco mode, and it's saying 148 kilometers range. We'll see how much range it gathers up going down the hill. So I'm not going to apply much throttle at all going down here. Yeah, look, it's quite refined for what it is. The chassis isn't the absolute best, and the suspension is probably a little bit too soft, or just not as tied down as some of the more established rivals, but totally acceptable, especially if you're living in the city and going to use this predominantly in the city. These tyres aren't really the best either, so if you fit some decent tyres on it, it might actually respond a bit better and handle a bit better. So just coming down to the bottom of the hill now, and we've gathered up 3 kilometers, so it's saying 151 now. Just over a short hill, it's gathered up 3 extra kilometers of range. In terms of performance, yeah, look, it goes really well. We put it back into normal mode, pick up to 100 kilometers an hour speed limit, and yeah, it goes just fine. It's probably better than most of the petrol-powered SUVs in this specific class. It certainly is in terms of low-end pickup. Like if you slow right down to 60 kilometers an hour, and then put it into sport mode and floor it, yeah, it actually pushes you back in your seat quite a bit, and you can overtake quite easily. Whereas if you're in a petrol-powered SUV of this size, it'll probably come with a CVT automatic. When you floor it, it's really going to stress the engine and whine right out, and not provide anywhere near to the acceleration that this is providing. All right, let's head out now and do the performance test and see what it goes like.